Captain Midnight.
This video is brought to you by World Anvil. Well, to paraphrase a most likely former DC actor, the hierarchy of power at DC has just changed. As chairperson of DC Studios and Movie 43 segment director James Gunn has announced that Henry Cavill will not be returning to the role of Superman, since he's writing a script that will focus on the earlier part of Clark Kent's life. Initially, I was going to make a video on the next Spider-Verse movie this week, but this news just felt too big not to comment on. As anyone who saw my last video will know, I kind of thought they'd keep Cavill around, but probably radically alter the tone of the kind of Superman movie he's in. It appears that DC is looking for a more complete, clean break from the past though, so I wanted to follow up on my last DC video and talk about that this week. Not just what this means for Superman and Cavill, but the rapidly changing DC studios as well. Oh, and sorry if I sound really weird this week. I'm recording in a closet at a house that I'm staying at while traveling. Hopefully it's not too distracting because I think we have a lot of interesting stuff to cover.
Canavision 8 camcorders.
Hey, I thought you were Superman, huh?
Hey, I am.
If it moves, shoot it with a cannon.
So I want to return to Superman in a second, but first I think it's worth mentioning that all of this does kind of lend some credence to the report in The Hollywood Reporter that Jason Momoa could be switching roles from Aquaman to Lobo after the release of Aquaman 2. The first film did so well that it would still be a little surprising to me, but now it seems like Gunn and company are dead set on a complete and total DC Universe overhaul, well aside from Pattinson's Batman and the Joker sequel. I, and I think many others, had kind of been assuming that the Flash movie would be used as sort of a convenient reset point for DC, a way for them to dump what they felt like hadn't been working and keep around what had. But now, I don't really think that'll be the case anymore. It doesn't seem like Gunn is very interested in looking for ways to comfortably massage the DCEU into some new avenues. I think he just wants that completely clean slate, which, to be fair, I do understand. That brings us back around to Henry Cavill. There's one thing that I think has to be acknowledged here. The way that DC handled this situation was embarrassing and stupid. Having the actor announce his return to the world and appear as Supes in Black Adam, only to a month later get cold feet and go in an entirely different direction, it's not a reflection on the next Superman movie or anything, it's just the unfortunate result of a studio that seemed like it's been floundering and looking to throw anything at the wall for a very long time now. If he hadn't come back for Black Adam, this announcement would still have been met with a lot of anger from many fans, but to do it this way just feels like adding insult to injury. Dwayne Johnson has spent the last year or so talking up Black Adam as one of the new pillars of DC, as a character that's going to go toe-to-toe with Superman very soon, even convincing Warner Brothers to bring Cavill back for that scene. Now, even though there's been no official announcement, it kind of looks like all of that is collapsing around Johnson. If DC wasn't fully on board and didn't plan on continuing to back Black Adam after this first movie slightly underperformed, they should never have let that scene be shot. Now they've let what could have been a perfectly okay one-off about a C-list character turn into a major embarrassment for one of the crown jewels of the company. Now, do I think any of this means the next movie is going to be bad? No. Honestly, the prospect of a James Gunn written Superman film is still pretty interesting to me. I do want to know what that looks like, but it does start off the project on the worst possible foot. In Gunn's tweets, he mentions the possibility of Cavill coming back to play a different character, which kind of echoes the Aquaman to Lobo concept. I am kind of interested what that would look like. On one hand, having Cavill around while a younger actor plays Superman may always make it kind of feel like he was demoted. But if the character was really interesting and dynamic, that trade-off might be worth it for Cavill. The Man of Steel has long been accused of being a boring character, and while I've never really agreed, I think especially post-Witcher, it'd be interesting to see him play a completely different type of character. And look, I know for people who only know this character from his failed movie, this suggestion might sound terrible, but I think he'd make a genuinely great Jonah Hex, a character that deserves a far, far better film than the one he got. I also think it'd be interesting to see him cast as a more comedic character like Booster Gold, instead of going the more predictable route of giving that role to a Ryan Reynolds type. Henry Cavill has the advantage of looking like he walked straight out of a Darwin Cook panel, so there's a lot of characters I could see him playing. But I'd also completely understand if he doesn't want to work with DC again at all after this, given just how badly they've handled this whole situation. Plus, I hear that Warhammer movie really wants him on board. Which does still leave us with one big thing to talk about here. There's a whole new Superman movie coming out with a new Clark Kent. To me, that's pretty interesting. Obviously, it's way too early to know what this movie is going to be yet, so there's plenty of room for speculation. With Gunn writing, it's easy to assume it'll be a more comedic take. I'm just really hoping the tone doesn't feel like the MCU, because we already have a lot of that already. I also hope it's really different from Gunn's own The Suicide Squad or Peacemaker, which just don't feel like Superman at all for obvious reasons. I do think there's a way to pull off Superman without going the now default route of evil Superman or just treating him as a joke. It's often said that the character is boring because he's too simplistic and fully good. He doesn't have those layers of gray that many of the superheroes and anti-heroes who are created in his wake have. And I understand that perspective, but I think Superman is only boring if the writer lets him be. If you put him in a context where doing the right thing is difficult and comes at great cost to himself and his life as Clark Kent, I think it can be genuinely compelling. I'd also like to someday see a movie that embraces Superman's Depression-era roots, that strips his power set back to what it was in the late 30s and gives us the pissed-off crusader for the everyman that we see in those early comics, where Superman was more likely to confront an evil prison warden or save a woman wrongly on death row than fight a galactic threat. But I doubt that's all that likely. If they'd rather go a more modern direction that will still feel completely different and new to audiences, I think doing a spin on Philip Kennedy Johnson's recent Warworld story in Action Comics would be really cool. It would put Supes in a context very different from any of the previous films and present him in a far more vulnerable light. Or, they can just go the safe route and do another riff on John Byrne's classic run.
Slade and Jimmy Olsen have been kidnapped. Who will save the day? You are Superman.
With a Superman TV show currently airing, and so many Superman movies under our belt, I think taking a big swing here on something more unexpected would be really great. But what do you think? Will you give this new Superman a chance? Was Henry Cavill's exit the last straw for you, as I've seen many people saying online? Or are you more excited now, knowing that this will be a clean break from the past? I know people are very opinionated on this one, so you can let me know here or on Twitter @MidnightCap. Oh, and if you have a fictional world of your own that you don't want to see fall into DC-like chaos, I have the thing for you, World Anvil. This is a great resource for anyone crafting massive worlds, especially for role-playing games. Seriously, if you're a DM and want some help assembling the best possible campaign, this is really a no-brainer. World Anvil excels at interactive organization of your world and story, with wiki-style presentations of your writing. One of their coolest features is the interactive maps, and using them with Chronicles, which allows you to organize a story across the time and space of your world. So laying out massive sci-fi or fantasy worlds has never been easier to do. Plus, it's just a lot of fun. Instead of endless, messy notepads, you can organize cleanly and efficiently, making it a breeze to connect the story threads how you see fit, with text articles, art pieces, and your own elements. It also makes it easy to create magic systems, family trees, and get across exactly the tone your story requires, whether it be a campaign, a novel, or wherever you're creating your sprawling epic. So head to the link in the description down below and use code MIDNIGHT to get 40% off an annual membership.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once, because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started, because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.